Good evening, Chicago. This is Jerry Vasilatos, broadcasting to you from my bat cave, man cave, call it what you will. It's my headquarters as I broadcast Tuesdays and Fridays for Chicago Corner, and I'm joined tonight by my colleague from Hardlands Media. You know him. He's a moderator at Hardlands Media. He frequently joins us in the live chats, and tonight he's joining me live, Mr. Ed Heller.
Hello, everybody.
Mr. Real Deep Dish Pizza.
Yes, coming to you live from an undisclosed deep dish pizza laboratory on the north side.
Ed is a mad scientist with pizza. If you haven't already visited his website, realdeepdish.com, to check out the scrumptious and delicious secrets he shares of pizza making. And Ed's also a gourmet in many other areas. I remember the barbecue ribs you made for us when we came over during the summer. I got to get that recipe.
Yeah, I'll be happy to pass that on to you. I have to dig up which rub I actually used for that. But when it comes to the St. Louis style spare ribs, I pretty much got that dialed in pretty good.
Very good. Anything exciting happening in your neck of the woods? Although, actually, let me table that for a moment. Tonight was the last broadcast from the old studio of Hardlands Media for Kit and Daniel. They are now moving to their new studio, our new studio, their new digs. And tonight was their bittersweet last broadcast. But as I wrote to Daniel, it is a new beginning. And great things are on the horizon for Hardlands Media. And I want to congratulate both Daniel and Kit and Faze over at the regular studio, or at the old studio, now moving into the new studio, because there's some really exciting things on the horizon for Hardlands Media as well as the rest of us.
Yeah, I'm hoping they check in with us tonight. We'll see how busy they are.
You know, speaking of that, I just got a Slack message from Daniel. Let me open it up here real quick and see what he had to say about that. Sorry, they're about to pack the cars and about to drive to the new location. They're managing the last reaction recording in the old studio, so they will not be able to join us tonight. However, we send them our best wishes. Godspeed, man, getting the remainder of the equipment and stuff to the new studio and setting up. I'm not sure. I don't know that they're going to have everything set up for tomorrow night's show, but I know that they're working on it. But they had to get out of the new location, the old location.
It sounded like it's likely they won't be doing a live stream on Wednesday, but
they won't be doing one.
They will not. But let's cross our fingers and hope that they're at least up for Thursday. And if they manage to get everything up and running by tomorrow and miraculously discover a live internet connection that they can use, that would be a great surprise.
Oh yeah, that's
streaming tomorrow.
I remember now. They were waiting on the internet connection, the high speed, to be installed in time.
Yeah, they got a chance to give that last middle finger to Xfinity. Right before their end of their broadcast, because I guess Xfinity wanted to extort them one more time for a short period, and they're like, nope, we found somebody else to hook us up for temporary internet before they go with that really sweet fiber that some of those places get. So,
Xfinity thought they were going to hoodwink people by changing their name from Comcrap to Xfinity, but Comcrap, Xfinity, they are still the worst company in the world, maybe next to Chase. Yeah, I don't know. So, there's probably a list of about 10 really horrible companies, but Xfinity and Comcrap are definitely up at the top of it. And I can say that because I don't have them.
Mm-hmm. And anybody out there, if you're for a better internet for everybody, definitely support efforts to get municipal broadband in your local area. I know it's kind of leaps and bounds and it's kind of an uphill battle, but some cities are able to get the ball rolling on it. And when your city is able to pay for a much more affordable internet connection at a much higher speed, it's better for everybody.
It's what they do in Europe. But God forbid that would be socialism. Anyway, we've had an interesting news week here in Chicago. Let me bring up our first story, and we'll run the video, and I will also read the story as it's associated. I don't know how many people saw this week, but let me see how large we can get the video. This was downtown Chicago. two men were beaten and robbed in the middle of State Street as people walked by, drove past, and twerked up a storm. Let's take a quick look at that video. I don't know if I can make it larger here, but is there any volume? There's no volume to it. How about that? It's hard to decide which part of the video is the most revolting. This was near River North.
I don't think I watched the entire thing earlier, but I watched a good portion of it, and it's kind of difficult to see what's going on in the beginning until you can kind of see where there's some altercations going on.
Well, I'm going to read from the article because I'm just going to let this thing run as I read from the article because the article's a little lengthy, and this comes from CWB Chicago. It's hard to decide which part of the video is most revolting. Is it the sucker punch that sends a man slamming to the pavement? Maybe it's the vultures who rob two men, even taking their shoes as they lie injured in the middle of State Street. Perhaps it's the group of women who start twerking in the traffic lanes while the men are being victimized steps away. It happened at 1:31 a.m. Saturday on the 400 block of North State Street, and it's on video, as we are now viewing. A police spokesperson said the man in the green shirt, the one who was seen throughout the video, suffered abrasions to his face and refused medical attention. The man who was sucker punched is 40 years old and was taken to Northwestern Memorial Hospital. His condition is not known. Both men were robbed, the spokesperson said, and no arrests have been made. Who knows? Maybe the most revolting part of the video is the fact that something like this could happen in one of the city's busiest nightlife districts for over 5 minutes before a police officer was able to make their way to the scene. CPD radio traffic shows officers who were monitoring the local police district surveillance cameras told dispatchers about the battery in progress on State Street around 1:33 a.m. Officers requested an ambulance upon arrival 6 minutes later. But slow responses are the new normal under strategies deployed by CPD Superintendent David Brown, whose master plan has stripped local police districts of officers. The 18th district, which includes River North, currently has just 351 cops assigned to work at streets, according to the Chicago's Office of the Inspector General. That's the fewest number of officers since November of 2017, and it's 15% lower than the 416 cops who worked there when Brown took command of the department in April of 2020. The downtown nightlife areas have been riddled with problems over the past year. Reports of gunfire, supported by the discovery of shell casings, are frequent on weekends. Shootings, once rare, are not so uncommon anymore. We need help, a River North bar owner told CWB Chicago in a message last weekend. We'll have more on the downtown troubles in a follow-up report. So how about that? Look at how long that's... This is State Street, 400 block of North State Street. That's a busy area downtown. And I guess what's surprising to me, given how adamant the police are about getting more funding so that they can police the streets better, I don't see them, despite the money that has already been given to them. However, I will say, let me bring this video down. Of course, I have to go to my other screen here. Where am I at here?
Well, clearly whoever's operating the surveillance camera in that area is following the action. He saw that guy run off with the bag, and he's following him as he's basically looting that guy's bag.
Yeah.
But I mean, if the surveillance guy has that much time and that much attention to be able to follow it, all the stuff that's going on now, why are there no arrests? Why isn't there a quicker response? And for a department that keeps crying poor or crying that it doesn't have enough resources, why isn't it using the ones it has?
There are blue light cameras downtown too, I believe. Everywhere. Blue light cameras all over the city. We're a surveillance city. Not to harp on this again, but we got the cameras at the intersections and near parks or near places that they claim are parks to issue tickets to people. But remarkably, the blue light cameras don't work as well as the red light cameras. However, I do want to share this. When we wonder where the police were, gosh. In our next story, white police officer restraining black woman walking dog caught on video. And this was in Chicago. Let's take a look at this video. Apparently, this is where the police are feel it's more important to direct their resources.
That's fine. That's fine.
Now understand this.
Please respect my space. It's COVID. 6 feet. You do not have.
This woman was walking her dog when she was racially profiled by this Chicago police officer.
The mask on.
And then on top of that, the guy doesn't have a mask on while he's outside, while he's approaching someone who clearly is aware that distancing is one of those things that you can do to keep yourself from catching COVID.
And remember, this is the police department that doesn't want to vaccinate or wear masks. Here they are. What is she doing for him to stalk her with utter intimidation in this video?
It's inexcusable, really. I mean, if she's walking her dog and if he wants to, give her the single notice that, okay, this is an area where you shouldn't be walking your dog, and she'll be like, okay, I'll move it, which essentially sounds like what happened, then he should have just been okay, and then let it go. There's no excuse for what's happening right here.
This is what we talk about in regards to escalation. They don't de-escalate.
What did
they
he
go
grab
into
her for?
situations looking to cause problems because they can. Now, you want to talk about pissing all over the legacy of a good cop like Ella French? I present to you this video. Now,
yeah, and they're protecting this guy's identity, which is,
right.
I mean,
I was looking in the Newsweek article because Newsweek reported on this. I'm trying to find this officer's name, and
which is ridiculous, because if this guy's out in public, and I would imagine that anyone who's familiar with the police officers would be clearly identifiable. How has nobody in the media even mentioned who he is? Because this guy should not have a job anymore.
No, he shouldn't. But remember, Ed,
not as a cop anyway.
Blue light cameras at State Street nary an officer to be seen after all of our COVID funds last year went towards increasing their budget, and so these are their priorities.
And I don't know, why did he even grab at her? Was she going to make a phone call to report him, and then he didn't want her to do that, which means his assault here is an attempt to cover up his actions? That's not acceptable either.
It would not surprise me. So, welcome to Chicago. This ended up making national news with Newsweek. An investigation has been launched after several videos surfaced online showing a white officer restraining a black woman while she was out walking her dog in Chicago. The Civilian Office of Police Accountability, which investigates allegations of misconduct by police, is looking into the incident that took place on North Avenue Beach. That's not too far from downtown. North Avenue Beach and Lincoln Park around 12 a.m. on Saturday. Now, clearly, I'm not saying this cop could have been over at State Street, but again, what are CPD's priorities? Sorry, as I lean over all the time, it's because I've got my other monitor screen over here. Mm-hmm. That's the screen I'm sharing, so it's like I can never see like the reduce the window thing with my mouse unless I'm looking in the lower corner because I've got something in the way here. But yeah, really Block Club Chicago
over here too.
Block Club Chicago updated this story today, and this comes to us by way of Kelly Bauer and Justin Lawrence. The Chicago cop put on desk duty after grabbing black woman walking her dog in Lincoln Park. Nikita Brown they identified her. Nikita Brown was traumatized by the obvious case of racial profiling, her attorney said. Mayor Lightfoot has pushed for a quick investigation. The Chicago police officer who grabbed the black woman as she walked her dog in Lincoln Park has been put on desk duty. That's not enough. The officer, whose identity has not yet been publicly confirmed, was put on administrative leave Monday morning, a police spokesperson said in an emailed statement. Superintendent David Brown said earlier in the day that move is akin to having an officer sit at a desk. Now, it's interesting that Superintendent David Brown and the police department would not be transparent about this officer's identity. It kind of reminds me of Superintendent Brown not disclosing the fact he was suspended in Texas, as we reported on last show, when Mayor Lightfoot wanted to appoint him as in all the vetting that happened with Chicago City Council. Again, the culture of rules for me, thee, not for thee. Rules for thee, not for me. The incident is also being investigated by the Civilian Office of Police Accountability. The agency had urged the police department to relieve the officer of police powers, which Brown said he reserves for serious cases where it appears the officer could be fired or put him on administrative duties while its officials investigate. Videos from the confrontation, which show an officer walking closely after Nikita Brown grabbing her and holding her as she tried to leave the park near North Avenue Beach, has spread quickly on social media. I was quite disturbed by what I saw, Mayor Lori Lightfoot said. I would be surprised that she didn't say that she wasn't surprised, because we see it all the time. At an unrelated news conference, it looked like the woman was following the direction of the officer and leaving the beach. This is a pretty straightforward matter. It's concerning that what we saw in the video.
Yeah,
Nikita Brown's.
Even if they have like a short period of internal investigation where this guy's writing a desk for a couple days, it shouldn't take them this long to figure out that this guy should no longer be on the force.
And, I would also venture an opinion here. This can't be the first incident with this hothead escalating things. It's probably maybe the only incident that someone's caught on camera.
Yeah, it'd be interesting to find out how many complaints this officer has had.
Yeah.
And I don't want to be the guy who rags on police departments. I just want everybody to be accountable for their actions if they're going to be in a position like this. So,
Ed, despite a lot of people's opinions, I don't like to harp on the police department either. I'm critical of them because they're not doing their jobs. This job is a privilege. They don't serve and protect. They're more worried about their authority being followed as they break their own rules. And I got into it with a friend of mine. We respectfully disagree about a lot of this, who thinks that anytime I'm critical of the police, I'm dismissing the fact that there are good cops. And I said to her, the only thing we disagree on is not that there aren't good cops, but what I disagree with her on is that the good cops are not policing their own bad cops, which is why nothing ever changes.
Yeah, it's an institutional problem that I don't know how we're going to solve, but clearly this guy is not helping the solution.
No. The Fraternal Order of Police is led by another jackhole, John Catanzara, who in our last week's show was talking about how the mandate for police officers to get vaccinated is like putting people into gas chambers because they don't have any choices. It's like fascist Nazi Germany. When you've got leaders like that at the Fraternal Order of Police and this institutional culture that you just referred to, this is why nothing changes. I mean, that guy's a thug himself. And the fact that there's just this acceptance of this kind of abusive behavior by our police department, and the fact that the good cops that I know are out there aren't exerting any influence that I would like to think that they have. It's just never going to change. So it's sad. I don't like coming on here bitching about the police. I really don't.
Yeah. Well, and I don't either. And for me, I don't even know how qualified I am to really be able to do a deep dive analysis of the problems with the way police departments operate. I'm just a regular guy who has a perspective of this is what I've been seeing, and this is not very good. There's got to be better ways to do it. And it'd be nice to have somebody on who maybe somebody watching would be interested in coming on with Jerry at a future time to talk about what the alternatives are for community policing or community support for all the problems that the city has. I mean, clearly we had the one problem where they're basically using police for, to respond to every situation instead of the ones that they should be focusing on. They shouldn't be responding to a mental health issue typically. Although I did hear that recently they're starting a pilot program where they will have a set of people, including a support officer, at least this time, to address those types of issues, and maybe that program will at least in some way signal a better way of doing things.
I think it's a great program. When I heard they announced it, I'm glad that that's what they're allocating funds towards. And yeah, we are just two regular guys who want to respect authority. But when we see this next to us without any law enforcement intervening to protect that guy who got his skull smashed, but we're seeing this, what does it leave you to think about priorities? That's the problem. It's a big part of the problem. And again, talking about the example of Ella French, who was lionized, as she should be, because apparently she was one of those few good cops. And the police department really wrote it out, pointing to the fact that she was one of those good cops, right? And that's great. That's what all cops should aspire to. And then we see this bullshit. How do you honor her legacy and be good cops when this is the kind of shit we see going on with the racial profiling and literally assaulting this woman in the park because she's walking her dog while black? It just burns my blood.
And it makes you wonder if the chief of police is even talking to the rank and files to let him know that this stuff isn't okay.
It does, yeah. I mean, that's got to be like at the top of the many things that they discuss when they put them out on. I mean, look, they've got a PR problem. They know they have a PR problem. If I was a cop, actually, I know a cop in CPD who's got a lot of integrity and who off the record has told me they are good cops who are just sick of this, but they feel powerless because there is no, it doesn't seem like unless somebody gets killed and it's on camera, as we saw in the Van Dyke shooting of Laquan McDonald, that there are any repercussions. It literally takes someone to get killed until serious, and it's got to be on camera where it can be proven. That's what gets people's attention. It should never get to that. That's the problem.
And even in that serious circumstance, it's not like there's really a proper response to it. So it's I don't know. I don't know how else to keep responding to these
I know, and we're just. I don't mean to like belabor it. I mean that we're kind of past this story, but just kind of bring.
And the only other thing I would add is that if they had more social programs, if we had more areas where people were getting educated, after school programs, community type support systems all over the city, especially in places where communities need it, like where people are predominantly of color, I would, maybe we wouldn't have people getting mugged in the middle of the street, maybe wouldn't, or at least there would be a more rare occurrence.
That whole video on State Street was surprising to me because anytime I've been downtown, well, I guess it depends on what block of State Street it is, but when I'm in the Loop, I see police cars all along State Street, especially near the Chicago Theater. They seem to be mostly in the tourist district. Now, I don't know if 400, that was 400 South or North State Street. Let me take a look again. No, this was near River North. That's a tourist district. That's what kind of surprises me, the 400th block of North State Street.
Yeah, and there's probably spend hours talking about the motivations of people right now, but we know the economy's not as good as it could be. Yeah. We know that there are thousands of all over the country, there's millions still unemployed. Unemployment benefit extension ends on Labor Day. How's that for irony?
That's not too ironic.
And that's really the dumbest thing you can do when you have an economy that's just weakly recovering, is to pull the rug out from under a bunch of people who were actually able to contribute, even in a small way, to the economy with those unemployment benefits. It's absolutely ridiculous that the national Congress isn't extending it, and it's just as bad that we haven't heard.
They're on vacation. They got to do their vacation.
And then if we basically assume that we're not going to get help from DC, then our local representatives, especially the governors and our state representatives, should be stepping up and using the relief funds that they haven't used yet to extend those benefits to people. People need help right now. It's not just me. It's a lot of people who are going to be really hurting right now. and there's really no need for it.
I'll give some credit to our Governor Pritzker. They did reopen the Back to Business program, where they are going through applications for businesses that have been hit by the pandemic. They did this last year, and then they ran out of those funds. I'm not sure where the new funds are coming from, if they came from another federal relief program, but I know that applications are open for small businesses, especially in the hardest hit areas of the city, the low income areas, to help float and sustain what businesses are struggling to remain open right now, and pay their employees, pay their workers to help them do business.
Yeah, and I think a while back we were covering on what type of rental and housing assistance was going to be available at least through Illinois, and we still don't have an update for the homeowners assistance fund, but that should be coming soon. They said sometime in the fall there will be applications for mortgage relief. I'm not exactly sure what kind of hoops or hurdles you have to jump over or under in order to get that assistance, but hopefully the state won't put too many on there.
Yeah. I'm fearful we're looking into another abyss.
Yeah.
I want to remain hopeful, but they're all on vacation right now. And, I do think, and I've said this before, we rushed too fast to reopen without the proper relief in place to keep places closed and keep people able to pay their bills while places were closed, to try to stave off the first wave. And now we're going into the second wave. Dana Fairbanks shares with us, I can't get over the fact Congress was willing to give $6 trillion to the top 1% in the CARES Act, but they couldn't figure out how to extend unemployment with the extra $600 a week. Well, that's because Biden won the election, Dana. It didn't matter anymore. It just didn't effing matter. And then you got Biden. I mean, nationally, we're Chicago corner talking about local stuff, but I saw a great video of Biden falling asleep in front of the Israeli prime minister, when the Israeli prime minister was in the Oval Office in a meeting with Biden, and Biden was just like,
well, they got to dial those meds in just right for Biden's brain to keep working, and maybe it's possible they started wearing off toward the end of his meeting. I just posted a link for mutualaidhub.org. Which, if anybody is looking for assistance or looking to volunteer to a mutual aid near you, you can find locations near you. It pulls up a map info interface thing, and you can type in your zip code or whatever, and it'll show you places in your area where you can try to get or help out with mutual aid, and that's going to be really important in the coming days.
That's really helpful, Ed. Thanks for sharing that link. So let's move on to our next story. Speaking of rushing into things too fast, I don't understand how they didn't have a plan B to counter this, given the fact that there are many employees across all walks of city service, from the police department to the fire department to now private school bus services that do not want to be forced to get vaccinations to do their jobs. And this comes to us from the Chicago Sun-Times by way of Nader Issa. CPS talking to Lyft and Uber after bus drivers quit over vaccine mandate. Mayor Lori Lightfoot said this is an all-hands-on-deck moment after some parents learned over the weekend that bus routes were unstaffed. And this all happened last minute. Suddenly, they didn't know how the hell their kids were going to get to school. As thousands of Chicago's public schools families scrambled to find transportation to the first day of school Monday because of a mass bus driver resignation that officials attributed to anger over the vaccine mandate, Mayor Lori Lightfoot said her administration is in talks with rideshare companies to take children to their schools. The move would be highly unusual and could cause yet another set of dilemmas to sort through as parents figure out how to get their kids to classes. And I also want to say, if I were a parent and I had a kid, I don't know how thrilled I would be about whether the city gives me the money or not to pay for a ride share. What kind of security does anybody have putting their kid in a car with a stranger that they don't know, as opposed to bus drivers who are vetted with security background checks? I mean, I don't want to. Here comes the voice of doom and gloom, but you don't know if any of those drivers have any kind of a record with assaulting kids, preying on kids. You don't know that.
Yeah, and I mean, we can have this whole conversation about how viruses transmit and
Right.
how effective the vaccine is against that, and for how long we don't know. But it is possible, even if you've been vaccinated, to pass it on. People know that this is a fact. And so it's understandable, I think, in a way, that certain people might be still hesitant, although it sounds like it might protect you better if you can make it through the potential side effects. And I don't want to go too deep into this rabbit hole because we could be talking for hours about that kind of thing. But yeah, mandating a vaccine is one thing. Being stuck inside a bus with a bunch of kids who haven't been vaccinated
and who don't have, from what I understand, kids are not as prone to the symptoms. I mean,
I don't think that's true.
You're hearing about more sick kids?
It depends on what state you're getting your news from. Because some of the states where the kids are already back in school, I don't have the stories in front of me, so I don't want to.
No, I trust
presume.
you. I'm not.
But I've read a couple of those articles where the kids, have been back in school for a handful of days, and then because I guess some of the schools are testing the kids either daily. They're testing them, or that they're coming up positive, and so are these kids going to be able to manage the symptoms or be more resilient to it? I'm not a doctor. I couldn't tell you.
Well, if I can interject there, from my experience, 2 young people that I know have caught it. And I would say their ages range from 15 to 18. And they weathered it. And what I understand with younger people is that it's easier for them to weather it, but when they're carrying it and they're around older people, that's where the danger is in passing it along. Yeah. I mean, it's no picnic for them. I'm certainly not suggesting that it is. But, on the flip side of that, I also have another family member who was vaccinated and they caught Delta. And because and ironically, they're 49 years old right now, in very, very good health, very fit. The worst of the symptoms were like they had a really bad cold and a bad flu, but they were weakened and they were not doing very well. But the fact that they were vaccinated is what I think helped stave off the potential of a hospital visit. So when you're talking about the mandate with the school buses, ironically, what's meant to happen here is to protect the school bus drivers from potentially catching the virus from kids who may present asymptomatic or who may have it, but are not suffering the worst side effects of the virus. Because if an older person catches it and they're not vaccinated, there are all kinds of more serious respiratory issues for older people that can then get passed on and on and on. And this thing's never going to go away.
Yeah. And of course, the vaccine is only one piece of the puzzle. And it unfortunately seems to be the only one that the corporate media and politicians are focusing on. Because a lot of teachers, including, teachers in the Chicago Teachers Union, have been hesitant to even open schools up again, just because it's basically a virus factory to put a whole bunch of kids in a closed space like that with who knows what kind of situation their ventilation system is in. I can't imagine that every school has the best ventilation, even with precautions that might be being taken.
And this is what the teachers were arguing against, rushing too fast into getting the kids into classrooms, as opposed to continuing the homeschooling or being a little bit more conservative about how quickly we reopen and put kids back into schools. About 2,100 students, including 990 in special education, were given no more than 2 days' notice that their bus route no longer existed. District officials said they received word Friday from the private companies with which they contract for bus services that 73 drivers had resigned because they refused to abide by CPS's vaccine mandate, which requires all employees and contractors to get shots by October 15th. The requirement was announced more than 2 weeks ago. CPS believed there were bus drivers in place, Mayor Lightfoot said at a back-to-school news conference Monday at Ombudsman Chicago South Alternative School in Chicago Lawn. It was only Friday that the notification came from those third parties that they had a shortage of drivers. That is not CPS's responsibility. We have a contract with those companies. We had an expectation that they were going to fulfill their contract. All right, so let's give benefit of the doubt here. Although I said a moment ago that the city and CPS should have had a backup plan, actually these private contractors should have had a backup plan if they knew 2 weeks ago that these people were putting in their resignations to get more workers or prepare for it farther in advance.
Yeah.
We're going to work through the kinks, the mayor said. I'm sure you're going to find individuals for whom this wasn't a great start, but we're going to work hard to make sure that they solve those and address those problems. This is not on CPS, and I want that to be very clear. So what happened after this also was that CPS started offering families $1,000 up front and $500 monthly for a travel reimbursement until the problems were fixed.
Yeah, well, that doesn't cover Uber prices. Have you seen how much it costs to take a cab these days?
Yep.
Oh my goodness. I mean, and then because like companies like Lyft and Uber have that, that variable pricing based on demand, it could cost, like $50, $60 just to send your kid to work one day. That's crazy.
That $1,500 stipend is going to go really fast if they don't get the school buses back on the road for those routes that got canceled. Public transportation is one option many students use. CTA buses and trains are free for CPS students on the first day of school, then cost a reduced rate of 75 cents per ride the rest of the year. But it's tough for many kids, such as those with severe disabilities, to take transit to school. This would be a really great PR moment, aside from the issues with the background checks on Lyft and Uber drivers, for them to reduce their rates to 75 cents to pitch in and help get these students to school. It's not like they can't afford it. These companies that don't pay their fair share of taxes suddenly getting these $1,500 stipends siphoned to them from the parents that the school is giving them to. The mayor said the city has started conversations with 2 other companies, but said plans hadn't been worked out. This is an all hands on deck moment. That's an understatement, she said. It isn't clear how quickly those rideshare services could solve the problem. Representatives from Uber and Lyft could not be reached for comment. Any parents in the live chat right now that want to share some of their thoughts on this? We've got some good conversation coming out here. Auntie Ann says, the CARES Act did allocate money to schools for upgrades to ventilation and other virus mitigation strategies. Some of them used for PPE and hand sanitizer or other stuff, but not ventilation. And Mayra Sanchez shares with us, the past 2 days rides were coming up for $20 plus for a 5 to 7 minute ride.
Yeah, that's nuts.
Our dystopian future has arrived.
And then on top of that, public transportation has been kind of sporadic too. And I don't know how everybody in the city is doing with taking public transportation to get to places, but have you tried waiting for a bus lately?
Oh God!
Sometimes,
yeah.
Sometimes you just can't afford the time. You have to spend that money on that cab, and it's insanely expensive to do that.
I don't know how people regularly exist on ride shares or cabs. Versus the other side of the problem that you just stated with public transportation. You literally are leaving maybe 2.5 hours in advance if you're on the north side to get to a job downtown, with the way that buses crawl, or if you're not, you don't have the advantage of being close to the train. That's a little bit faster. You still have to take a route or connect buses to get to the train to get wherever you're going to go.
Yeah, I mean, even if there's enough buses and train cars, or at least, or if the schedule is not, spread out so thin, like you said, it takes a while for these modes of transportation to get places. Especially if you're if you're on the red line going downtown, it's not so bad. But if you're on a brown line train, it's stopping in multiple stops. And the blue line does the same thing in certain areas. and obviously buses stop every couple blocks for the most part. So there's a lot of time wasted taking public transportation, and if the public transportation isn't going to be reliable, that's a problem for the economy in the city.
I have a friend who works for the city, and she's got to be up at 4:30 or 5 because she takes the train from Howard Street all the way downtown to Harrison, where she works in the court building. And her day doesn't end, at 5 like most people. I'm sure it ends more like 6 or 6:30. But when she checks in with me just to say hello, she's still on the bus at like 10 o'clock at night just to get back up north to where she lives close to Howard Street. So crazy. Hey, smash that like. James Root, thank you. Yes, smash that like, and please, I haven't said it at the top of the show. I usually save it for the end of the show, but again, please subscribe and share our channel with your friends, and spread around Chicago Corner, because we're almost at 900 subscribers now, I think. And once we hit 1,000, YouTube starts monetizing us, and that goes towards our streaming expenses, so I don't have to keep trying to sell mugs here through our Cafe Press store. This stylish Chicago Corner mug that we designed.
It is a nice mug.
Thank you. To help supplement some of our costs streaming in high definition now.
Yeah, definitely tell your friends and family to subscribe to this channel. Even if they're not going to tune in regularly, we could definitely use that 1,000 subscribers so we can keep this channel rolling.
Yeah, and there are going to be exciting things to come here at Chicago Corner, not just Hardlands Media once they move into the new studio, because we've been talking about building a set there and going into the studio to do more outside of our little frames from our home webcams.
Yeah, we're just at the beginning here, ladies and gentlemen. Things are going to get really interesting here over at 99 Perspectives.
I'm looking forward to it. All right, so moving on to our next story. Guess who's back in the news, Ed? Oh my God, it's the Park District. It's the Park District.
Oh, good. The Park
District. Led by that stellar urban leader appointed by Rahm Emanuel, Mike Kelly. So this comes to us from Block Club Chicago, reported by Joe Ward. After a 19-year-old drowned near Rogers Park Beach, a neighbor installed a life ring. So, as you would expect quite naturally, the Park District removed it. Rogers Park neighbors have been calling on the Park District to install life rings at beaches for years, to no avail. Here we are, another summer and more drowning victims. After fighting for years to get the city to install life-saving flotation devices along the Rogers Park lakefront, neighbors took matters into their own hands over the weekend and installed a life ring and caution signs at Toby Prinz Beach Park. Now, let's put this in perspective. They didn't just do it. They asked endlessly to the Park District, please put these life preserver rings in to prevent drowning, to help save lives. I mean, I guess they need them since the lifeguards are too busy sexually assaulting other female lifeguards while they cover up that story at the Park District, right? I mean, apparently the lifeguards are not paying attention to the waters. They're assaulting their coworkers, which is why these life preserver rings are, I think, very, very sorely needed. But I'm sorry, I'm editorializing there, but, my outrage at this stuff does come through with gallows humor. But by Monday, the life ring and signs installed by two neighbors were removed from the beach by the Park District, said Alderman Maria Haddon of the 49th Ward. The life ring and signs were installed on the end of Pratt Pier, which juts out into the lake at Toby Prinz Beach, 1050 West Pratt Boulevard. Of the 4 people who have drowned in Rogers Park in recent years, 3 of the incidents happened near the pier. I've got an idea. Maybe instead of running around the city plopping Amazon lockers in parks, why don't you guys start installing life rings at all the beaches along the lakefront? Does it make too much sense?
Oh, they have a wonderful circular logic for why they aren't going to put any in there. And
liability. Let me guess. Does it rely on liability issues?
Yeah. If anybody goes on Twitter, there's an account called People's Fabric. It's PeoplesFabric, and they've been covering this type of stuff that goes on in the city, and they're like, They say Chicago Park's cold and absurd legal calculus. No life rings can ever be available is a better policy than taking the chance a life ring is stolen and unavailable when needed.
I'm going to tell you about that kind of mindset. We're going to go off in a detour here because it reminds me of a personal incident in my life. When I lost my leg in 1986 in a freak accident boarding subway train at the Harrison Street station coming back from Columbia College, most people don't really realize it because you do step over it very quickly, but there's or there used to be at least. I haven't ridden the train a lot lately, but when I have, it does seem that gap is less. But back in the day in the 1980s, that was a pretty wide space that you would literally just step over without even thinking about it to get from the platform into the train. And at the time of my injury, there was a personal injury lawsuit that was filed. And my dad, who's a designer, asked my attorneys, as a stipulation in whatever ends up happening with Jerry's case and potential settlement, can't we mandate to the CTA that they put some kind of a rubber flap that's flexible to help prevent that gap? Because I wasn't the first one who got his foot caught in that space between the train and the platform and had an injury. Luckily, I survived. But the attorney said that's a really good idea. However, it would cost more money to put that flexible rubber safety flap over the gaps and engineer that all across the CTA line throughout the city than it would cost in settlements that they paid out to people who were injured as a result of that safety hazard.
Some moron did the math on that one, I'm thinking.
As they did with these life rings at the beaches.
It's like, I would think that, if you're putting life rings,
Ed.
If you're putting life rings,
safety.
Yeah, which is dumb. It's like, why would they care about liability for having a life ring available? Wouldn't that be providing something for safety? So, Lord forbid if something goes wrong with the usage of that life preserver or the life ring, I would think that people would err in the side of, well, it was meant to be there to help people, so we're not going to sue you for it being there.
Plus, I would imagine it's far cheaper to install these life rings and deal with what you just stated than installing or accommodating Amazon to put lockers all over the city. But you know what, Ed? The life rings don't bring in revenue.
Yeah, or, they could put the Amazon lockers out, where all of the life rings should go and then attach a life ring to them.
That makes there you go.
And they can put Amazon branding on the life rings.
Yes, that's what you do. Amazon branding on the life rings. Ed, that's thinking out of the locker box.
And then they can sue Amazon, who has plenty of money for lawsuits.
I like the way you think. I like the way this man thinks. Of the 4 people who drowned in Rogers Park in recent years, 3 of the incidents happened near the pier. That includes a drowning last week on August 22nd. 19-year-old Miguel Cisneros Jr., poor kid, drowned after jumping off Pratt Pier for a swim. It happened before lifeguards were on duty. Cisneros was close enough to be thrown, a life ring hadn't said. Onlookers ran from the pier to the lifeguard station on the beach, where they were unable to access a life ring or rope, she said in a recent email to constituents. First responders were unable to save Cisneros. Rogers Park resident Jim Gondursky said he was tired of the Park District's inaction and decided to do something about it. Because, the thing is, I know that they've got their hands full covering up the investigation of the other lifeguards assaulting, their coworkers. Ginderseki put up a Coast Guard rated life ring Friday night. Another person added 2 signs later. One said, "Do not swim near the pier. Strong current," with the words, "fuck austerity" at the bottom. The second sign said, "Life rings, not goons," but they only lasted the weekend. "I'm not surprised they removed it," Gondursky said. "I'm appalled they removed it and didn't replace it." Hey, look, if the city was that upset about the sign, all they needed to do was remove the sign, not the life ring. With the signs removed, there is no warning mentioning dangerous lake conditions at the end of the popular pier. Gandersky said he could understand removing the foul language from the signs, but something is needed in their place. It's especially troubling, he said, of the sign removals. Park District officials did not say why the life ring and signs were removed, but said the district is looking into adding life-saving devices at beaches. The Chicago Park District is currently exploring supplemental safety equipment for sanctioned swim locations. Spokesperson Michelle Lemon said in a statement, the Chicago Park District urges the public to enjoy our beaches safely by entering the water only when lifeguards are on duty and respecting the flag system that notifies beachgoers of current water conditions. Haddon and neighbors are renewing their efforts to have the Park District install flotation devices along the lake. We've been working for a couple years to try to get the Park District to care about the safety of swimmers along the lakefront, Haddon said in a social media post. Here we are, another summer and more drowning victims.
Yeah, and there's also a double standard going on with these life rings, too. You got plenty of life rings over by the piers where all the yachts are, and that doesn't seem to have any kind of liability issue for Chicago Park. So
no,
where it doesn't add up, does it?
Priorities or lack thereof as far as where they're most needed. All right, onward and upward to what I think was a somewhat upbeat story as far as how it might provide safety as opposed to neglect it throughout the city. So let's move on to what is going to be our final story this evening, and that is from the Chicago Sun-Times again via Rachel Hinton. Getting the lead out. New state law requires water suppliers to submit plans to remove lead service lines. Now, we know there's been a very serious problem in the city with lead in our water. And, there's finally some progress on this front. State Senator Melinda Bush, a lead sponsor of the legislation, said the lines are a health threat that not only costs us billions of dollars, but poisons our children and undermines our residents' confidence in their water supply. Legislators and advocates of removing the state's lead service line said Monday a newly signed law moves the state closer to removing that toxic infrastructure and ensuring all Illinoisans have clean water to drink. State Senator Melinda Bush, a lead sponsor of the legislation, said the lines are a health threat that not only costs us billions of dollars, but poisons our children and undermines our residents' confidence in their water supply. Finally, something proactive instead of reactive in protecting our kids and families. Passing this bill with strong bipartisan support demonstrates a fundamental truth about lead in our drinking water. It affects all of us, and every single one of us, especially our children, deserve clean, safe drinking water, the Grays Lake Democrats said. The Lead Service Line Replacement Notification Act, again, props to Governor Pritzker, of which he signed into law Friday, creates timelines. Go ahead.
If I could just say, I gotta say, as far as billionaire governors go, J.B. Pritzker has actually been one of the better ones.
I agree. He's no Rauner, thank Christ, and I'm agnostic. He's I was not a big fan of his in the beginning for no other reason other than I was tired of seeing billionaires buy their way into office. Yeah, but I give him credit.
That's what I meant.
And that's a legitimate point because we see too many rich people buy their way into office and they don't do anything. It's for their own egos, their own sense of power, their own self-aggrandizement. And this guy is actually, I think, been very responsive in a good way that it helps citizens in the state as well as the city of Chicago. So I do tip my hat to him for this. This has been a long time coming. So the bill that Pritzker signed into law Friday creates timelines for owners and operators of community water supplies that have known or suspected lead service lines to take an inventory of those lines and create replacement plans. Water suppliers will have until April of 2024 to submit their replacement plan to the Environmental Protection Agency. The law also requires the state's Department of Commerce and Economic Opportunity to create a low-income water assistance policy and program to ensure state residents have access to affordable, clean water. Lead in drinking water has long been linked to a host of health problems, including kidney failure, heart disease, learning disabilities, and impaired hearing. Oh, my hearing actually over the past several years has been, I wonder if that's related. I've had some hearing issues. Studies have found that even tiny amounts of lead can damage children's brains. State Representative Lamont Robinson, Democrat of Chicago, was a lead sponsor of the measure in the House. He said it's estimated that Illinois has about an eighth of all known lead service lines in the country. Service lines are pipes that carry water from the municipality's streets to homes, as this photograph illustrates. Not only does Illinois have 1/8 of the lead service lines in the country, but 300,000 to 500,000 of them are in Chicago, according to the Illinois Environmental Council. Although this is a statewide problem, we know that this toxic infrastructure disproportionately affects Illinois' people of color, Robinson said. Everyone deserves to have clean drinking water. This will eliminate environmental injustice, and this will ensure that people of color in Illinois are set to get their fair share of the 1,100 jobs that will be created by replacing lead service lines across this great state. So, hey, there's the good news to kind of get to the end of our broadcast.
I hope it's good news because, you just got to wonder if there's any fine print in there. And I hope there isn't any that's going to let people weasel out of replacing their lead lines, because as this article says, they have until April 2024 to submit a replacement plan to the EPA, not to actually replace the pipes by then. So it is kind of a slow rollout for this action, but at least it's a step in the right direction.
It's like what people said when Rahm Emanuel approved the $15 an hour minimum wage, and what was that 4 or 5 years ago, and only now was it instated after the cost of living has gone up.
Yeah, so, it wasn't. 15 an hour wasn't even enough 10 years ago.
Yeah.
And that's just the truth.
It's not enough now. It should be 25 now. If you're going to keep
watching, don't have to believe me. You can look at economic statistics, the cost of living, how much it costs people to actually be able to rent in the different cities in the country, and 15 an hour is not really going to cut it for most of America.
No, it's just pushed the bar a little to the side while cost of living has gone up. And most economists have stated that if the minimum wage is going to be commensurate with the cost of living, it should be like upwards of $25 minimum an hour.
Yeah, it should be somewhere in that vicinity for sure.
Which I think
I would say a lot of them. Go ahead.
Oh, go ahead. No, you go ahead. I'm sorry.
I would just say, I think there's a lot of small business and a lot of employers are just not waking up to that reality yet. They're used to doing things a certain way. They're used to paying a certain reasonable amount of wages in their mind based on their own operating budget. And who knows if they have adjusted for the times that are today. We've been going decades with 725, was it 750, something like that an hour,
insanely low amounts.
And then that doesn't even get into tipped workers wages, which is abysmal as well. So I do notice that some employers are starting to wake up to the fact, but it's not all of them yet. And they're kicking and screaming because they see their profits dwindling away, or their operating budgets where they feel that they might need to cut corners. And if we don't get any type of assistance from the federal government or state governments for funding or transition to the real new living wages, I think we're going to have a hard time with this economy over the next decade.
Well, correct me if I'm wrong, and I might be, but I think I read somewhere that the federal unemployment that was issued for during the pandemic, which is ending September 4th, the very least, I think if people were breaking it down and saying that by the hour it was more than $15, because even the federal government was acknowledging people they were calculating that if you were to break down what the unemployment was, it was more than what would equal $15 an hour.
Yeah, I think I don't know. I don't know the exact amount.
Yeah, I could be, like I said, I could be wrong. People can look that up.
Even then, I don't think it was quite enough there for people to get by. Some people might have been able to squeeze by if they were able to save money beforehand. But as we know, the average person only really has maybe $400 or $500 in emergency funds these days.
If that,
what's
been going on.
And so, and and as Kit Cabello says, you get one bad day, and and then it's tragic. What when nobody really has a backup plan.
And that lack of funds is what leads to medical bankruptcy or not being able to get health care, leading to homelessness, leading to people losing their properties. It's that one bad day. And we all saw Joker, who had that one bad day with Joaquin Phoenix. Okay, so maybe that's a little bit of an exaggeration.
Well, actually, it took me a while until I could work myself up to watching that movie. I was like, do I really want to? I'm like, okay, at the time I had cable, it finally hit cable, and I watched it. And it wasn't really as bad as some of the critics thought it was.
It wasn't. I think that there was an agenda at the time it came out. We're really shifting gears here now, talking about media and entertainment. But at the time it came out,
fun to talk movies on this channel for a little while.
And that's something I'm talking with Daniel and Kit about doing some kind of a pop culture broadcast from the new studios where we can talk about my second love is media and entertainment. But there was a widely held belief before the movie came out that Joker was supporting, or it was what's the word? It was
kind of anti-establishment message.
But
movie.
Further than that, celebrating or enabling the concept of a white guy going crazy and going out and doing the things that Arthur Fleck did in the movie. And that supported it was excusing incel culture, or the culture of people that feel like, well, their lives aren't in good, they've got such horrible lives that they have a right to strike out. And that's not what it was at all. I mean, I don't think that movie condoned his actions. If anything, it just kind of like shed light on what a cruel society we are, that we do treat people in such horrible ways, because that character was victimized throughout the first 3/4 of the movie until he finally snapped. Again, doesn't condone what he did, but
he had a clearly defined mental illness going on too. And that's another thing that really the society needs to deal with. And so, I mean, it is an important message to bring up that people need help like that. So where we can bring up how all those mental health facilities got closed in the city. That's not great for the city.
No, you want to prevent that one bad day, not let it happen. Well, as we come to the conclusion of our broadcast, I have a very quick announcement to share of my own before we wrap things up. Kit Cabello and I were guests, I think it was a little over a week ago, at KRTD Media. We were guests on a panel regarding the March for Medicare for All March strategies after that march that took place, God, so much time's passed. I think it was in July that we were out for, and Kit was the MC, and I got to speak on behalf of Medicare for All as a beneficiary, as a disabled person. Well, I want to say that Shane from KRTD Media invited me on their show tonight, and I'll be going on following the conclusion of Chicago Corner to do an interview, talk a little bit about what we do here at Chicago Corner. Oreo, get your butt out of the audience's faces. Share a little bit about myself. I mean, I've talked about myself enough on this channel, but Shane was very kind to reach out to me and say, hey, would you be willing to come on the channel? We'd like to interview you, since, admittedly, I'm kind of like a new face on this YouTube podcasting scene. And I said, sure. I mean, I'm happy to go on and talk about what we do here, share a little bit about my background. So everyone who's watching after the show, I'm not sure when we go on, because I did tell Shane we go an hour, and I'll be finished by about 8:30, and he's on the East Coast time. He's in the East Coast time zone. So you can always navigate your way to KRTD Media in the search button up above here on YouTube. After Ed and I conclude the show tonight, I'll probably be over with Shane. I'm not sure if I'll go on immediately, but I will be talking with him tonight and sharing things from Chicago, and hopefully drawing a lot more subscribers over to our channel here on Chicago Corner and Hardlands Media. So I hope, if you're all interested, that you will check out the broadcast from KRTD following this show, and we'll have a good time. I told Shane, I'm like, I'm not all politics. I'm a filmmaker. I'm in media. I do producing, directing. He's like, no, that's fine. We can talk about all that stuff. So I'm like, cool. as long as I don't disappoint anyone's expectations, that I'm not going to go on and just talk politics and news, because that's not what I'm all about.
Mm-hmm. Oh, hey, I can end us on a lighter note here.
Cool.
Let me see if I can share my screen here.
Okay.
Okay, where is it? Here we go. Okay, I got inspired today. So I am working on the
Dude,
various
you're making
styles.
me hungry. I can't go out. I got to do another broadcast. Now you're making me hungry.
So a while ago I had designed the deep dish pizza slice that you see in the upper left there, but I was like, I should make one for Chicago Tavern style thin crust. So I made that one that's on the bottom there, and then I was like, why don't I do all the styles? So then I did stuffed pizza, which is in the upper right. And then I was like, should I do a Pequod style, like Bert's Pizza? If you're in the Chicago area, you know what I'm talking about. So I made that too. So I got four Chicago styles of pizza under my belt that may end up all together on a t-shirt design for merch on cool. my Redbubble shop. Right now, the latest one I've got up there is the Chicago Thin Crust t-shirt design. I got one for the locals. It just says thin crust. And then I got another one that has a little more words in there. It explains what Chicago thin crust is. So it's just, this is the kind of art that I make when I get inspired to make art.
Ed is a very, very talented graphic designer, and he doesn't just graphic design pizza. And he is available. He is a freelance designer. So, yeah, we're not joking. If you guys love Ed's work, he's always looking for new clients. So please check out Ed's website or contact him on Twitter or in the live chat here. The man has many talents.
Yeah, let me put my website in there. It's
hey, really quickly, did that lead I forwarded you from email ever end up going anywhere? Or because I know you were fielding a few.
No, I hadn't heard from anybody yet. I should probably give them a call. But cool. Yeah, I am available for certain types of graphic production work. I'm also good as I can help you write or edit articles if you're a writer and you want somebody take a second look at it. And I do charge by the hour, and I'm considering accepting crypto as well. So if you have Cash App, it's real easy to pay me in Bitcoin if you want to do that. And if you are a crypto investor and you have Dogecoin, I will accept that as well in the cash equivalent of my hourly rate, which if you're interested, you can contact me.
And Ed also does website design. Did you web programming too?
I gave the Hardlands Media website a refresh.
He's responsible for our look. Those of you who visit Hardlands Media and the Chicago Corner websites.
Yeah, so if you go to hardlandsmedia.com, you'll see the Hardlands Media site, and then it'll also have links to Chicago Corner page and the 99 Perspectives page and Chicago Reacts. And I probably will have to add another page when they do the new channel, and we'll make updates as we go along. But right now, it's something that we can be happy that people can go there and get the information they need. They can see the live videos and all the shows that were recorded. They can see links to the social media, and it should be relatively easy to navigate on a mobile device.
And soon they'll be able to see the new studio.
Yes, looking forward to. I haven't been to the new studio yet, so I'm looking forward to the day that happens, and maybe I can take some photos, and if they let me, I can put them up on the website.
Boy, was I in the right place at the right time when I reached out to Kit and Daniel back. I think it was in February, and I said, "I love what you guys do. Can I be a part of it in some way?" I didn't even know what was going to happen as I stumbled into this hosting position inadvertently, but I really enjoy it. And I just have to tell our audience, the HLM crew is like a really phenomenal group of people. I feel like I found another family, another professional family in my life, along with Ed here, Kit, Daniel, Kira, Laney, FaZe, everybody over there, Casey, who's helped us shoot video in the field. This is a really stellar organization, and they're real. And what they want to do is real, and it's important. It's hard when we read about these stories in the news and comment on them all the time to feel like anything is going to change. But really, I think the mission statement of what Hard Lens Media as well as Chicago Corner wants to do is spotlight this stuff to hopefully get people to take action themselves, whether it's vetting political candidates more seriously or taking the time to vet them or getting involved directly, as I keep bringing her up, but she's one of my favorite people I've had on the show, Melissa Hernandez from Belmont Cragen, several weeks back, helping the homeless community. And that's what the network's all about. That's what we're about here at Chicago Corner. And I'm really excited about what the future is going to bring. I think it's looking very, very bright. I want to say I'm really expecting that the light at the end of the tunnel here as we go into the new studio is going to be real light. It's not going to be a train coming at us. So
yeah, it looks like a pretty bright future for Hard Lens
so.
at Chicago Corner, and I'm happy to be a part of it. And I like all the people that work there, and I think it's just going to keep getting better.
All right, everybody, I'm going to have to get us out of here because I don't want to keep Shane waiting too long. But remember, down there, there's a link to our Cafe Press store, and you can get this handsome, Chicago Corner mug from Cafe Press. It makes your water, coffee, and everything else taste even better.
I know, I'm jealous because I don't have one of those.
Well, you can. No, I'll get you one. I was about to say you can buy one, but no, you've earned one, so I'll get one from Cafe Press for you. Actually, I should get one for everybody in the studio, so when they go on, it'll be like a little plug when they're on the air. Yeah, that's it. We'll be back again on Friday. Ed, thanks again for joining me tonight. I love having you on as a co-host. I don't have time to eat before I do Shane's show, so, dude, you're killing me. Remember, everybody, if it's happening on the streets, you'll hear about it here on Chicago Corner. Stay safe and see you next broadcast.
I'll email you a cookie.